end to end. Take me to where at 9 p.m. You and me, end to end. Take me to where. So tell me why I'm living in this way. So tell me why you're still whiskey my brain. And I'm so scared to fail whenever. Cause you're the one that I want. We can meet at 9 p.m.
Good evening, everybody. Hope you're having yourself a wonderful Wednesday evening. I had to think about the day, just being trapped in these rooms. You never know. Hey, my name is Shadow Temple, and welcome to, unfortunately, the last StreamerSquare workshop of 2020. Doesn't mean, of course, that our workshop series will be gone anytime soon. We just are taking ourselves a break as part of StreamerSquare at large to take a moment to kind of work on our content and build it up and make it really fantastic as we go along. The workshop, whose title I think is being created down below me right now, is a pretty solid one, and I'm very excited about it because I have been a user of this particular application for many a year. We're going to be talking about, for the last topic of this year, Xsplit basics. Now, you may have heard of the word Xsplit before when it comes to streaming. It is not OBS. I think what a lot of people get out of it for the most part. But when it comes down to it, even though OBS is kind of this sort of standard streamer package sort of feel when it comes to streaming, Xsplit is actually quite a very powerful option out there for those of you who may not be as excited about using OBS to do all this. I also started on Xsplit, Morag, but unlike you, a combination of apathy but also loving the feature set of Xsplit caused me to stick with it, and I've been with it ever since, and it has worked out wonderfully for me. The stream that we're currently running on is running on OBS. However, I have been streaming on Xsplit for the past over 6 years on my channel, and I have loved every single minute of it. So we're going to talk a little bit about what Xsplit is, what streaming software is, because we may have even gotten lost to here at this point of like, what do you need these software things for us? Yeah, we're going to be talking about like why you would even need streaming software to begin with, because that's sometimes something that people don't cover. We'll talk about what sort of options Xsplit has in terms of the software they use, and then we're going to jump in right after that to just focus mainly on the software bits themselves. We'll actually run through them together. We'll set up a stream in both their Xsplit Gamecaster and Xsplit Broadcaster, both of which are fantastic software applications on their own right, but have very different feature sets. And we'll explain why you should use one over the other, or when one should be used as opposed to the other. A little bit of background on myself, though, before we get into all of that, just to kind of explain that I promise you, I really know what I'm talking about here. I've been streaming on Twitch here since 2014. Oh my God, that's a long time. And I got partnered back in 2018, doing things like mostly variety content, gaming nightly, pretty much, cooking every 3 times a week for a long time, and doing other things as well. In addition to streaming, I'm also a voice actor, host, Minecraft YouTuber, and educator. Actually does use Xsplit to do a lot of that education. We actually do a lot of these virtual field trips and things that I work through through the museum through Xsplit by way of things like Zoom and Microsoft Teams and things like that. So Xsplit not always just necessarily for streaming. You can use it for other topics as well. But I have used it for recording, for streaming, for communicating, for, again, since 2014. I've been just jumped into it, stuck with it the whole way, and it's been nice. It's been real nice, and it's really been cool to see the feature sets that we've come out with so far. Thank you, Abe Tuar, for the Twitch Prime sub, by the way. So, before we get into Xsplit itself, let's talk just for a moment about streaming software, because maybe you've been thinking about doing streaming for a bit and you're not necessarily certain about what you need. You know, that you probably need some sort of computational device, whether it be a gaming console, for example, you know, like the PS4 or the Xbox One have their own respective apps that you can stream from, and that works pretty well. But there's also the ability to, of course, stream from your PC. There are several different options out there, but you do need some sort of software in order to broadcast whatever is on your screen or screens out into the world. With that, you can pretty much stream anything you want. That's the nice part and the big benefit of using streamer software, as opposed to, say, using, again, the Twitch app directly off the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 4, you are limited to what you have on your screen or a very basic overlay that Sony has set up for you. It works out pretty well for a no mess, no fuss kind of solution there. But maybe you want some extra things on there, right? Maybe you want alerts for when things happen on your screen, or when things happen to your stream, whether it be bits or subs or tips and things like that. Along with, maybe you want to have multiple games that you can feature. Maybe you want to have multiple people on the screen. Things like that cannot really be done through the basic sort of setup on your game consoles. Xbox using Lightstream is very cool. I'm excited to see the developments that are coming up with that, because up to this point, it really wasn't practical to try to build a larger hobby or even a career off of streaming based off the streaming apps on gaming consoles themselves. These are, as time goes on, this workshop may become hecka out of date, and you could just stream directly from your PS5, no problem. But for the time being, this is kind of the law of the land. If you want to get serious about streaming, you should get a PC that can stream, and you should be able to, or you should use some of these streaming softwares out there to make it happen. Lightstream is an option out there, of course. Twitch has their own built-in software called Twitch Studios, which is in beta and it's working its way up. OBS is kind of the main the main feature out there at the moment, because it's free. It's open, it's free, and it's available for people to just kind of get their feet wet, right? But there is a major competitor out there as well to OBS, and that is, of course, Xsplit, and that's what we're going to be working through today. But the nicest part, of course, about streaming software is that you can swap between different scenes. So, for example, if you're not feeling, or maybe you want to first chat and interact with your audience before you start playing your video game for the day, well, you can have yourself a whole scene that's set up just as you talking to the audience, and then once you're ready for the main event, you can swap over to the game. Or you can have multiple cameras if you're a creative streamer or things like that you just can't achieve through other means. So streaming software, definitely get yourself into it. Let's talk about Xsplit itself, though. So Xsplit's been in the streaming game since pretty much the beginning. Pretty much as long as Twitch has been around, Xsplit has been there, providing, at first especially, pretty much the only viable option for streaming out there in the world. The market has expanded since, as Twitch has become more popular, and of course, as well as things like Mixer, God rest their soul, and Facebook gaming, YouTube, and things of that nature, right? Xsplit has moved on with the times, and they have created themselves not one, but two separate programs that you can actually use in order to broadcast with. That is, of course, their Xsplit Gamecaster as well as their Xsplit Broadcaster. Both of these are very accessible, and both are very easily obtainable. The big difference here, though, is that Gamecaster is free and Broadcaster is not. I personally am a user of their broadcaster software. I purchased a lifetime license back in the day, and I have worked with it for years, and I really enjoy the level of customization that it affords me. However, that may not necessarily be for everyone, in which case their Gamecaster version is very, very easy to get started upon. And we're going to actually show all of that in a little bit. The way I like to put it, in terms of the difference between Gamecaster and Broadcaster, and you can actually see in the two pictures that I have here, the one that on the What's Xsplit slide has Gamecaster. This one here has Broadcaster. So two very kind of different approaches. Broadcaster is a little bit more kind of text-based and really kind of provides more of a quote-unquote professional UI or user interface experience, whereas the Gamecaster is very visual. Everything is right there in front of you. All the things that you want to click on that you might need are right easily accessible, right? Gamecaster wants to get you from zero to streaming as fast as humanly possible. XSplit, you're going to have to play around a little bit, but not as much as you do OBS. I like to compare it to OBS versus OBS or versus Streamlabs' version of OBS. Slobs, as the name unfortunately plays, is very easy to just jump in and stream and have the alerts that you want. But if you want to try to escape any of that, it's a little bit more difficult to actually kind of convert slobs into what you wanted. Whereas OBS itself, which is, by the way, for short, Open Broadcaster software, in case anybody didn't know, OBS takes a little bit more of getting the things kind of working, right? You do have to kind of mess with the settings a little bit. You have to kind of really tweak and find out where you need to be. Broadcaster is a little bit more like that, with maybe a more professional look to it than OBS, I would say. And then Gamecaster is a little bit like that Streamlabs OBS, where we just want to help you get streaming as fast as humanly possible. So, two clean apps. Again, Gamecaster free, Broadcaster not. I left the price of Broadcaster off of this workshop just because I assume that this will get out of date very quick, and then all of a sudden, me saying it out loud would just be a silly thing. But you can look up the details on their website, xsplit.com. I believe currently their lifetime license, so if you don't want to pay monthly or yearly or something like that, I believe is like $200. And then once you got it, it's set, and you've got everything ready to go for you. And any new updates that come in are just throw it in there for your own good. It's great. It's again, been using it for years. Really love it. All right. So before we go ahead and check these boys out, so again, the plan here is we're going to jump into Gamecaster first. We're going to go from nothing to streaming on my dummy test channel, just to show how everything works. And then after that, we'll swap to Broadcaster and get all of that working as well. Oh, a $10 lifetime license would have been some solid stuff, huh? Oh, man. Yeah, any questions about this? And hopefully as we go along, you'll kind of see why these software bits were created and why they're a little bit different than what you otherwise expect out there. When it comes down to it, and you'll kind of see as we go along here, this all comes down to preference. Whatever you're comfortable with is what your favorite software is going to be. But maybe you'll see something here that you're really impressed by, and you'll decide to make the swap from wherever you're at right now. Maybe you won't. No big deal if you don't. But if you have decided that you do want to get yourself into some of XSplit's kind of library of software, here's a way to make sure it all works, and we can work on this together. So with that, let's go ahead and get started on building ourselves a stream in Gamecaster. So here it is. This is the free software that XSplit offers, called XSplit Gamecaster. You can see that it has itself a pretty visual based setup, along with kind of a nice little dashboard on the right side that gives you a lot of information right there, right? Give me a second here. I'm going to bring up a magnifier so we can actually see things a little bit closer up, because it's a little tough to see, right? So I've got myself some preset scenes that I have built into Gamecaster, and this works pretty much no matter what bit of streaming software that you have. It's going to be pretty much like this no matter what, in that you have yourself kind of two sort of buckets when it comes to setting up how you want your stream to look like. Up at the top here, we have ourselves the different setups, right? Or sets, as they call them in Gamecaster. This is my first set, which you can see the scenes of down below. The set is this collection of scenes. And if I want to have myself a new set of scenes, I just have to click on this button here and add myself a new one. The bottom, meanwhile, contains all of the scenes that I have in the set. And you can see that these different scenes can do different things depending on what you want them to do. You can, of course, create your own scene, which we'll do in just a few minutes here. But you can also choose from pre-made scenes that they have. These are actually the current UI you see on the screen here is actually a preset that is free on Gamecaster. And so, like, for example, let's say you need yourself a nice starting soon screen. You can click on that right there, and all of a sudden, it's ready to go. And it has all the information that you want about your stream. Maybe you want, like, your recent tips and followers and things listed on the bottom of the screen. That's all played out for you in advance. I had to do zero work to add all of that in, and it already looks more professional than, honestly, my current stream. And, of course, you have the intermission. We also have the main screen and things like that. And you can see it swaps very easily. Now, you'll notice that it currently says that there's no game detected. How Gamecaster works, in order to make sure that this is as simple as possible for the user, is that they have themselves two official sources on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. They have themselves the main source, which is what's considered to be what do you want the main thing to be on your screen. And then they also have the camera source. If you decide to use a webcam for your stream, they have themselves a button that you can hit here to select whatever camera that is. When you first enter a Gamecaster, they'll give you kind of a little wizard that'll explain each of those pieces as you go along. But if you ever need to change it, you can always do it down here. So, for example, for my main source here, I can click on this, and you can see I'm given quite a few different options, including my game capture card that I have here, but also the various displays that I have on my computer, various applications that I currently have open on my stream or on my PC. But also, and this one has given me pause, but also I'm fascinated by, which is just called Any Game. So any game that you have on your PC that you currently have up will be captured by Any Game. And so at the moment, for example, I have myself Monster Train currently running in the background. Shout outs to Monster Train, I guess. You can see here, as soon as I click on the video game on my side, I now have that showing up really nicely. And of course, I have my camera here that's also selected, right? I like that game too, Morag. My little camera here, meanwhile, of course, I'm just trapped in this little box here that was already presented for me. They inserted the sources of these scenes in for me. I didn't actually have to do any of this work. But you'll notice that my camera, for example, it's not perfect, right? My green screen is not huge. And as a result, there are some corners of my screen that are still kind of showing, right? So we do need to make a few edits to how it captures my camera here in just a second. I'm going to show you precisely how to do this in just a second. So let's actually go ahead and start building this up, yeah? So I'm going to go over here and create myself a new set because I think it's time that we go ahead and do that. We can first, of course, create a name for our set, which I'm just going to call StreamerSquare Test Set because I'm really original. Perfect. And then I'm going to put a skull there because delete later. I'm going to hit create. And now I have myself my new set. StreamerSquare Test Set because I'm not original. Yeah, there we go. And you can see right here on the bottom, it is number one because it's spelled wrong, but that's okay. But more importantly, you can see that there is a blank set of space down here for new scenes. So let's go ahead and add my own scene first. So I'm going to hit add scene down here on the bottom. And you'll see that it gives me first an option to add my scene either by creating my own scene or by choosing a particular theme. The scenes that you saw before that had all of that extra overlay work were a theme that I picked directly from Xsplit. However, let's go ahead and create our own real quick, just so we can see all this in action first. So now I have myself a scene down at the bottom. And by default, they add both in your camera as well as the main source that you have. At the moment, if I click on this, and this sometimes takes a little bit of doing, you can see that just like before, it has the game not detected here, as well as myself in the corner here. If I click on the game again, you can see that the game pops in and we have Monster Train once again. Now, my camera right here is not very useful, right? So I need to make a few edits, and I also want to add some other stuff on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the edit button down on my scene here. Once I do that, it opens up a separate scene editor for your stuff. By default, it just throws on, I guess, this CSGO image right here. You can change that scene background or just trash it. I'm going to trash it because I don't really have a need for it. I'm just going to get rid of that real quick. And now there's no background that just kind of defaults there. Instead, now I have myself a blank screen, which is actually where my game source is. If I go on the left side here, I see I have two widgets currently in place on this screen here. I have the camera source, which is that little box in the bottom right-hand corner, as well as my main source, which is the game that I'm currently playing. If I click on one of those, you'll notice that I get myself a set of properties that I can choose from on the right side. I can also, of course, click on the item in that screen, and I can resize it and do things to it as I so desire. The main source right now is actually locked, so I can't actually move it around. But if I hit the unlock button, I should now have the ability to change up however I see fit. And you can see it gave me a nice little box that I can move this around if I so chose. I also can, of course, pick whatever settings for the source that I want here. If you don't want to click on that little option before, you can transform things, you can crop things, change the sizing and all of that. Nothing too crazy there. For my camera source, it knows that it's a camera and it might have a green screen and stuff like that. In which case, in addition to adding everything else, it does have a chroma key setting, which I can select in order to pick my particular green screen. I know that 50 is probably going to be a little bit rough for it, so I'm going to turn down the threshold a little bit. These are just kind of settings you have to mess with a little bit to find that exact right spot for your green screen. For the most part, it gets it pretty well right, but sometimes you want to make a few adjustments as you go along, maybe a little extra exposure or things of that nature. And just like with the game, you can, of course, add or change up the cropping and all of that. So, for example, I saw before that my camera was not allowing or not checking everything all at once, or it was showing everything all at once, including edges of my green screen. So I can actually hold down, I believe, Alt in this case, and I can actually shrink down the size of that just a little bit. So you can actually see now my green screen here a little bit. Oh, nope, actually that's just game or broadcaster has the Alt option here. So I'm going to hit crop instead, and I'm going to move down these sides a little bit here. And so that should be pretty good on that side. And then I'm also going to crop that down on that side. So now I have myself a nice cutoff on both sides. And if I apply that crop here, now I'll have myself a slightly smaller screen for my camera, but it will be a little bit better in terms of not showing everything on my back wall there, which is a whole lot of nothing. It's just a blank white wall, and I want to get rid of it as much as possible. So now I have these two sources here. I have myself in the bottom right-hand corner, and I don't even need a rectangle anymore. I'll actually just be my green screened self sitting in the bottom right-hand corner there. Let's see if we can add some other stuff, though. Say, for example, we want to add another widget. You can hit add widget in the top left-hand corner here, and you can see there are lots of different options that we have here. In general, of course, we have ourselves things like adding text to our screen, or if we want to add videos or images to our screen, or a web page, or anything like that, we can add those things very easily. In this case, for example, maybe I want to say hi to my mom. So I'm going to hit text, and I'm going to add widget. Now I have myself the text in the top left-hand corner there, and it's fine. But how's my mom going to see that? Her eyes are not very good. Let's make sure that it's in a much better vision. So I'm going to put it right here. And, that's definitely doing better. It's not very big, but we can make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And now mom should absolutely be able to see that text. Absolutely, for sure. So I'm going to now go up here, change the text here. And I'm going to type in this text box right here, "Hi, Mom." And as soon as I click away, it changes on the editor there. The size, the font, you can change all that as you so choose. I'm going to go for maybe Aldo the Apache. Sure, great. And then we can do things, of course, like center it. So if maybe that box we set in the center of our screen, we don't have to necessarily think about like, hey, is this actually center or not? There we go. We can, of course, change other things like the opacity, whether or not it's positively glowing. I'm going to change that actually all black right there if I can help it, all the way down to the bottom. And that way it'll pop a little bit better, which I'm hoping to see. Let's see if I do like 10 there. 1. There you go. Now we got ourselves a little bit of pop there. And we can also change things like scrolling feature. For example, if you have a lot of text, you can scroll along on your screen. So now I have myself a nice bit of text there. I could change things up as I wanted, but for the most part, everything's looking pretty good. And you can also see my camera has now popped into place. Gamecaster sometimes takes a little bit for things to pop, but eventually you can see that my green screen is pretty close. It's not perfect, but it's getting there in terms of hiding that stuff. We're not going to focus on that too hard, but adjusting your exposure and as well as the threshold that it uses to cut the green screen will help you out a lot there. Otherwise, they have a lot of other options here. If you want to, for example, change out the ratios of your main sources here, you can change them out from like 16:9 to 4:3. Here, you can change out for alerts. That's right. Xsplit actually has their own alert system that you can use, that you can build your own alerts in as you go along. And you can see that there are lots of different opportunities available for you here, as well as their own personal tip system that you can use. Labels here, meanwhile. You can keep an eye on like new cheers, new followers, subscribers, tips, things like that, and add them onto your screen. When you first start up Gamecaster, they'll ask you to connect your Twitch or YouTube or various accounts, and that'll allow you to get those things hooked in very quickly. They also have very easy things like counters built in for followers and things, sub goals, for example, or cheer goals, trains that you can start on your own. Various things like an event list or a chat box or things like that you can throw in. Actually, I personally like this social promotion thing real quick. It's kind of a nice little animated box that you can use to give like a call to action for somebody if you want to get that going. There's also some integrations, including Spotify, which, hey, be careful with that. Just saying. Recent news, but you can actually have yourself whatever music you're listening to on your Spotify account. If you connect your Spotify account, you can have it listed as crediting the author or the artist and the song title there, which is pretty nice. And even Streamlabs. Hey, if you're Streamlabs junkie like myself, you can of course just throw some of their alert boxes in there, just like you would for OBS or anything like that. So various different boxes and options that you have there. Let's say I wanted to add in Streamlabs. I can have it in the corner there and make sure that I all I have to do is go ahead and put my URL for whatever widget that I want to use from Streamlabs in there. And that allows me to just have that controlled in the corner there. Other things, let's see here. One more thing maybe I want to add, maybe like a picture or something, right? So I just want to add in like an image or something like that. So I just click on that and then I choose an image. Let's see here. Add a widget, please. And then I need to select an image to upload, which I'm going to drag this over here real quick. Not that I have anything too scary here. But I'm going to grab this real fast. Nice little Outer Wilds picture here. Let's say maybe I want to use that for my picture. So I'm going to go ahead and upload that to the cloud so it's ready to go. And I can have this. Maybe I want to stick this in the top right-hand corner because I have no sense of style or grace, and I just really want this picture somewhere on my stream. So I'm going to put that up in the top right-hand corner, and now I've always got a nice friendly reminder of Outer Wilds there. Okay, now that I'm all set there, and I think my stream is ready to go, and I'm ready to be famous, Mom, I'm going to go ahead and hit the save button at the top right-hand corner here. It's going to save up my scene, and once it's properly saved, I'm going to exit out. And now you can see I have myself my beautiful new scene with Monster Train, Hi Mom, and yours truly in the bottom right, which actually is green screening pretty well. You can see there as long as I stay in my little box. And now this is all set and ready to go. But let's say, Shadow, you don't seem like you have a lot of good design experience. And you say, excuse me, design is my passion, but also you're right. So in which case, I can go over to a new scene here. And let's say I just want to choose one of their themes because I really, really messed that one up, man. It doesn't look very good. Well, worry not. You can always just hit choose a theme on the right side, in which case they give you a whole bunch of different options here that you can look through and choose for free. For example, let's go ahead and hit browse all for the latest releases. You can see there are a lot of options here. I know they all say intermission. That kind of threw me through a loop first as well of like, are there only intermission pictures here? But the answer is that these are just the intermission slides for a bigger set of scenes that you can actually pick from. And so you can see there are actually a lot of different opportunities here that you can pick from depending on what sort of look you want to have. Let's say I'm a big fan of this kind of teal and white color because, StreamerSquare is rubbed off on me. And so I'm going to click on that. They, in this particular set, they have 3 different scenes that I can choose from. And I can either have just the starting one, or I can have the main one, or I can have the intermission, or I can have all 3 thrown in. I'm feeling lazy, so I'm not gonna do anything on my own at all. There's also, by the way, different variations of this color. So let's say that you're not a big fan of that blue, in which case you can also pick the blue version or the pink version as well. Just different opportunities that you can use here. So I'm going to hit add to studio, and just like that, all of a sudden, I have myself 3 new scenes that are being added into my system here. And better yet, and this is genuinely something that I do enjoy, those scenes have already grabbed the sources for both my camera and my game at the same time in advance. And so if I just click on this electronic intermission, for example, here, and I do my nice little clock wipe, you can change transitions, by the way, by clicking on this and just pick a transition. Let's maybe go with collapse next time. You can see here that my camera is already inside of here. Now, of course, it's not green screened. I'd have to work on that myself, but that was a pretty easy setup as well. I can go ahead and edit this however I so choose. But then you can see, of course, that if I click on my game back over here once more, that my game will show up in that tiny little window right there. And everything is already captured for me, which works out pretty nicely. Or, maybe you want yourself a nice little starting soon screen, which you can have that nice little collapse there, transition to there. And then the main one that I have over here is still loading up. Sometimes I've noticed there are a kind of a weird loading thing when you first add new themes to Gamecaster. A quick reset of the software typically fixes that pretty quick. But of course, I still have my main scene here too, complete with Hi Mom, that I could use anytime I so choose. Other features, for the most part, it's very, very easy to go live on this. On the bottom right here, you can actually see a lot of the options that are playing out here. And actually, let's go ahead and go through the settings real quick, just so we understand how this works as well. For the most part, they're going to have you connect via your connection, either via Twitch or Facebook Gaming or something like that, because it's very easy for them to just connect that way. But if you want to go for something more custom, you can do so as well. I'm currently connected to my dummy channel called Shadow_Test for all of your fake affiliate needs. I also have myself 2 options here. I can either set it to automatic, in which case it actually just detects my settings based on internet access, hardware in my computer, and things like that, and determines what sort of stuff I need to do for my stream and what sort of resolution and things like that I should be using for it. Or I can use the custom version, which allows me to pick some of that stuff as well. The ingest server, for example, I could pick, I guess, best match automatic, but I'm pretty close to the Chicago area, so I typically go for a Chicago server. I can also pick what resolution I'm going to go for, what encoder I'm going to be using, which in this case, there are kind of 2 main options out there for you. And it actually already describes what's going on there. You can either use your CPU or your GPU. Typically, I think the kind of going knowledge right now is, if you got it, the VENC codec. I've never said it out loud, and I will continue to not try to pronounce it because that sounds like a mess. But it is a very nice encoder if you have the graphics. The graphics processing power to make it happen. Otherwise, the CPU works just fine as well. NVENC. There you go. Now I know. But then you're skipping that other N in there. Is it not NVENC? I don't know. Freaks me out, man. Anyway, other things that we have here, you can also choose what quality you have. What they mean by that is they want you to determine whether or not you want to have yourself better performance for your game, or better quality on your stream side. For Gamecaster, you have 3 main options: performance based, which means that you're focusing on just your own stream, or just on your own game, and the stream is kind of secondary to that. Max quality, which means that they are chewing up your poor computer to make sure that they spit out the best stream possible, or somewhere in between, in which case then you want to have yourself a nice quality or balanced quality. Frame rate, I have mine set to 30 because for personal reasons. And then bit rate, you can either choose between constant, which means that it sends out no matter what's going on your screen, the same amount of bits all the time, or you can do adaptive, which means that it changes how many bits it sends out depending on what's changing on the screen. You can also you can add a stream delay and record locally as well, both of which are super nice, especially if you're having trouble with your VOD storage on Twitch and want to keep your local videos for longer than 2 months. And then also when people tell you to delete them. Yeah, it's a really handy thing if you got the disk space to just keep on loading that up as you can. Other things that we have here real quick, we have ourselves recording, of course. They'll tell you exactly where the videos will go, and you can set all that. You can set what sort of if you want the videos to split, at what file size do you want those to split? Maybe you don't want a 30 gig video file. I don't know. Devices. This is actually where you can specify what sort of items are running currently on your system. So if you have a capture card, you select it there, your system sound, your microphone, and your camera source. And based on those selections, it will just kind of smash it all together for you so you don't have to think about it. Anything that comes through the system sound goes to your stream. Anything from your microphone goes to the stream, camera source if you so choose it, and then the capture card if you've got one. Pretty easy stuff there. Hotkeys, if you want to set yourself some nice hotkeys like muting the microphone and stuff, you can set them there, of course. In-game HUD, they do have a nice little setup where you can actually see your chat if you hit a little overlay key on while playing your game. That's pretty nice. Other things here. They have themselves show Gamecaster when you're using display capture, which is really important because otherwise I wouldn't be able to show you what we're doing right now. That's an important thing to have. But let's say you want your broadcasting software out of the way. You want that extra stream space that you're showing off your screens on. That's a way to make sure that it doesn't get in the way when you're capturing an entire display. Other things, making sure that your mouse cursor is in stream recording or not. And then, of course, what adapter I guess you're using when it comes to your what processing you're doing. In this case, my shiny new RTX, baby. I just got them. I'm very happy. All right, language, that's pretty self-explanatory. Your accounts, what do you want to have connected there? Of course, I have Shadow Test connected here, but that's where you can also connect things like your Spotify. And they also have their own tipping system set up, which you could set up with if you so choose. And that's about it for Gamecaster. The last thing to do, of course, is to go live with our software here and see what happens. So let's go ahead and try that out. Thankfully, I have a very strong internet connection that I can pull off both of these things at the same time. Otherwise, don't try this at home. Yep, I actually clicked on the Twitch thing that showed me my account again, but I could swap to a different streaming setup if I so chose. I'm going to go ahead and hit stream. They're going to say, hey, set up your stream here. So they're going to give you the option to change your title as well as the category that you're in. You can either have them ask that every time or just have them say, okay, it's fine, and then go live. In which case, all of a sudden, now I'm officially live on Twitch over on twitch.tv/shadow_test. And that stream, hopefully, is looking pretty good. And I can actually see my chat on the bottom right there. Everything's running the way it's supposed to. And as I play my video game, I can easily just jump from thing to thing and just stream the way I want to. If I want to swap scenes as I'm going along, it's just as easy as clicking on the scene that I want, and then it's going to swap over to that. So that's where I should have been, of course, when I started streaming there, because we want to make sure that that's not showing anything before we get started. And then, of course, once we're ready to get started, and good evening, welcome, hello, we swap to our game scene, we play our video game, and then whenever we're done, right? And then to finish streaming for the day, all you got to do is go down to the bottom here and hit the stop button. They also show how many viewers you have at any given time, as well as how long you've been live. If you desire, though, of course, nice little feature. You can always click on it, and it just immediately toggles that away, so you don't have to look at your streaming count. Because the conventional wisdom on Twitch is don't look at your viewer count while you're streaming. It's a psychological thing. Don't do it. Anyway, I do it all the time, but don't do it. Do as I say, not as I do, guys. Very important. Okay, so Gamecaster works pretty well. Currently in beta, sometimes I've found some hitches. Most of the hitches fix themselves pretty quick just by closing the app and opening it up again. For the low price of free, it's pretty darn solid. Haven't had a lot of complaints about it. This is based on what I've done for this workshop here. Like, I'm willing to recommend this straight up to friends and things who are trying to get started on streaming, but aren't sure where to get started. Because when I was setting this up, it was just so easy to get in the first 30 minutes of getting things going, that I would definitely recommend trying it out for yourself for your first time streaming, if you so choose. And again, free. So that's pretty nice. Gamecaster.com if you want to check this one particular out. Are there any questions about Gamecaster before we move on to the holy grail of streaming, otherwise known as Xsplit, a broadcaster? I'll give you just a minute on that while I go ahead and take a sip of this here tea. I'm also going to stop this video here. They'll also, of course, ask you for feedback because they're still working on things. And the Xsplit team, for what it's worth, are very good at listening to feedback on new stuff. And they're always happy to add new stuff. Yep, you know it, Morag. You know it. All right, so other things here, by the way, as I'm waiting for any questions that might be there. There's also an achievement system. It's pretty cute. There's nothing too fancy here, but the idea is that as you do new things, they're going to give you some little achievements just to kind of push you along on your streaming journey to help make sure that you're fully utilizing the features as best you can, if that makes sense. All right, with that, with Gamecaster out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into what I will literally use to stream here in approximately an hour and a half on my own channel, Xsplit Broadcaster. So I'm going to go ahead and exit this out here. I'm also going to exit out my PowerPoint from earlier on. I no longer need that. And I'm instead going to go ahead and jump into Xsplit Broadcaster, which is actually toolbarred at the bottom of my screen constantly because, again, it's my life. Yeah, it's loading up right now. It just takes a second, and then once we're in, I'll show you what's up. Okay, here we go. So this is Xsplit Broadcaster. It is not as charmingly friendly as Gamecaster was, and that's kind of intentional, right? This is not meant to be for the first-time streamer. This is meant for the people who might be a little bit more comfortable with themselves and their tech and things of that nature, and are ready to just kind of jump in and have full control over these things, right? Just like with Gamecaster, you have yourself a big preview screen right here, of course, that's very easy to access and see. And then down below here is actually where they list the scenes. The difference is they don't have those nice little pictures for the scenes. They instead have, or actually, no, sorry. This is the scene right here. And inside the scene is a list of sources that you'll be able to add and have access to as you build things together. Over on the right side here, meanwhile, are the various scenes that are currently in this presentation, is how they call their collections for Broadcaster. So in this, in the kind of the boilerplate starter, they give us 4 scenes. You can add pretty much as many scenes as you humanly want. You just got to keep hitting this plus button and this plus button and this plus button and this plus button. And you can see that I can add as many as I want right here. None of these scenes literally do anything right now. But the options are certainly there. Xsplit is like, hey, buddy, are you sure that you don't want to set something up first? And I'm like, I'm fine. It's great. Of course, you can just build up your scenes as is, and I'll do that first just to show how this kind of works. The idea is that you start off with a blank scene. They're going to give you like a little kind of splash screen here just in case you want to try to get some other templates here, and I'll show off those templates later on too. But let's just get into the brass tacks of the matter, which is adding sources onto your scenes here. So right now we have ourselves a blank scene, and let's say I want to do the same things I did in Gamecaster, but now I want to do them in the Broadcaster software instead. Well, the first thing I'm going to want to do is probably add the game that I'm playing. So when I hit add source, you can see here I'm given a few different options. The one that I want to aim for to start, as you might imagine, to capture the game, I should go to game capture. And on the right side here, they find that Monster Train is out there in the world. And so now I can click on that, and it immediately adds it to my scene here and gets rid of the little template thing. The game starts off rather small in the corner there. And all I got to do now is just drag this bad boy out. Just click on an edge, drag it out. It's going to snap in place here, and everything is A-OK. You don't have to have snap-on or like a grid snap if you don't want to. All you have to do is click on the top right-hand corner and unclick snap to grid if you really like being specific about things, and you don't want it to ruin it by a pixel or two. If you want to then crop anything in your Xsplit Broadcaster, all you got to do is hold down the Alt button. It changes up your cursor there, and now we can make half this game disappear if for some reason we decided we wanted to play split screen Monster Train with nothing. There you go. Very fancy, right? But of course, this is a very useful, very quick ability to crop things that we can just change at will, and we'll pop that right back into place here. Yes, I for what it's worth, all my software always talks to me. They're talking to me right now. And sometimes they say nice things. Anyway, so we got ourselves the game up here. It looks great. Nice feature of this, unlike Gamecaster, as soon as you pull the focus away from the game that you're playing, it decides that it no longer wants to look at it anymore, which is kind of a little frustrating. If you're focused on the game throughout the stream, not a big deal. But Xsplit just grabs whatever you're going for and sticks with it no matter how hard you try, which can be pretty nice for most things. And down on the bottom left here, you can see that it added in my Monster Train source, and it's the only item currently in that particular tray. On the right side of this very, very, very long line, usually you don't have this full screen, but I mean, why waste any space today? There is that little eye indicator here. If you want your scene, your source to still be in your scene without necessarily seeing it, you can just click on the eye there and it goes away. Still there, so if you want to pop it back in, let's say you play multiple games in a stream, you just hit that little eye icon on whatever game you want to have on, and hit the eye icon to turn off the other ones without losing your sources. So let's say the next thing I want to add in is the camera, just like I did before. So I'm going to go back to add source once again. Again, I have very different options here that I can choose from. And I'm going to go for devices, then video. And then you can see I have a few different options here. Currently, my C922 Pro stream webcam is what you're seeing on your stream right now. So literally 2 inches to the left of it is my HD Pro webcam 920. So I'm going to select that one. And it's going to pop into place right there. As I have this here, I'm going to put this down in the bottom right-hand corner. The bottom right-hand corner. It's a little hard to do with the magnifier, I'm now realizing. Hold on. I'm just going to, grab it on that side. There we go. Now you can see it. Perfect. Now I have this set into the scene, and everything's looking good, except there's a few problems. Number one, I tend to look at my camera from this side of, or this particular edge of the screen. And I'd rather have me, or even though, I could, I guess, just turn the other way and not look at the game that I'm playing, I typically like to look towards the game I'm playing. And so, of course, I could just reset my entire configuration for my streaming setup, or I could just right-click on the source here and change a few things up about my webcam. So when I right-clicked on my webcam, you can see here it gave me a whole new menu that I can choose things from. Whether it be if for some reason I decided I wanted to grab the audio from my webcam, I could play around with that. I could pick whatever camera source I want. Let's say I wasn't feeling my webcam anymore. Maybe I wanted my game capture. I can swap that out. And it swaps out that source without too much fuss there. Eventually, it just swapping from a webcam to a capture card is a little bit of a doing. But now you can see that my no-signaled Elgato capture is now in the place of that. But I want my webcam back, so I'm going to click on that and swap it back to my 920. It's going to take a second to switch the source once again. And now I have that ready to go. On the bottom here, you can see I can choose a bunch of different options for my my dear Logitech webcam. If I want to change or configure some options here, I can always go into some video settings here. I believe the output's already okay. The input, you can see I can adjust my brightness and things like that. And that is just a quick standard way of making adjustments on the fly as you go. Otherwise, the various other tabs on these, and this pretty much is how you're going to see each of the menus on XSplit. You'll have the main tab that provides information about the main source. You'll have color, which you can change up the color of whatever you're working with. Let's say, for example, I'm going to move this out of the way so you can see my camera here. Let's say I really wanted everything to be really different. So I can change up the colors without too much trouble at all and just kind of mess with myself, right? Become a little ogreish here if I wanted and make myself a nice blue screen in the background. And if I don't want to just mess with the slider anymore, I can always, of course, type 0 there and make sure everything's set there. I can also change the brightness, the opacity, things of that nature without too much trouble. I can also, of course, add chroma key. So let's say I want that green screen out of here. So I click on chroma key, it defaults to green and everything's good there. You can see there's a little bit of kind of graininess there. To fix that, I can always lower the threshold. And now I can, if I keep knocking down that threshold a little bit more and more, you can see that even eventually my white walls start to disappear because it's just really aggressive. But if I go any more aggressive than that, you can see there's actually my sweatshirt here, against my better judgment, has a little bit of green in it as well. And it's starting to disappear the further we go down. To the point where if I go all the way down, I start to disappear too. So I'm going to go out of there too, because that would be bad. So no, instead of just trying to green screen my walls out of oblivion, just like I did with my game source, I'm going to hold down Alt. I'm going to drag this over a little bit and get rid of that section of wall, as well as this section of wall over here. And just like that, it's like you never even knew there was a wall there. Again, do not suggest wearing green adjacent clothing because that's causing problems for me. But at the very least, it's looking pretty good. The brightness is a little bit off, but that's something I can just kind of finagle with over time. You can also, of course, adjust the level of exposure I have here. And if you so choose, you can choose other keys to chroma key to. Say if I want to go for red instead, it's not a good idea. Don't do that. It's really bad. Go back to green. Green is good. Red, bad. Green, good. There we go. Much better. But if for some reason you did have yourself a different chroma background that you wanted to go for, it's pretty easy to adjust. Other things we can adjust to, I mentioned before that, hey, I want to look at everything the opposite direction, in which case I can go to layout here. You can see here, of course, can change things to a pixel by pixel like size if I so choose. If I decided I wanted to mess with the aspect ratio, maybe I really want squishy shadow, I could go for that if I so chose as well. I do not, so I will not. But I can also, of course, transform my webcam here. So like I said, if maybe I want to be up against this right-hand corner that I'm on, I can just do a quick flip, and all of a sudden now I'm looking towards the game. And if I move my camera back to that corner, you don't even notice that a part of my shoulder right over here is clipping just a tiny bit on this side. And it looks pretty nice, actually. Again, getting back to the future here a little bit in terms of the sweater, but generally looking pretty good. Other things that we can add in here if we so choose. Also, by the way, the order of these on the source list here matter in the sense that you want to make sure that everything is ordered from top to bottom. So right now the webcam's on top. If I slide it underneath Monster Train here, I disappear because the Monster Train is taking precedence. As soon as I move it back up, I'm back on the screen. Easy enough stuff there. Other things we can add. Let's say we want some text on screen. I got to say hi to my mom again. Once again, we go to add text and we go ahead and add this thing in right here. We can then just type in whatever text we want. Hi, Mom. And I can, of course, change up the font size or the font type that I want. I'll go for Constantina. I will bold it up and I will add a nice little shadow to the side of it so that it looks nice and dark on the edges. And just like that, I have myself a very nice set of text that I can move around on screen however I so choose. Hit OK there. And now, as I shrink this down, I have Hi Mom on screen once again. Very easy stuff. The shadow adds a nice little pop to it, so we don't have to worry about that. Again, if I so chose, I could either have Hi Mom over my face if I wanted there, or if I slide it down on my source list below my webcam. Now now the game's in front of Hi Mom. Now, if I slide it just a little bit down, I'm in front of Hi Mom. See? Pretty easy stuff there. If you want to add something like, of course, like a Streamlabs thing, you just click on web page, paste in the link that you want there. That's pretty easy stuff there. The text box, by the way, is a pretty powerful tool in addition to just being text. If you so choose, you can actually add a lot of different things to it by using custom scripts. They have themselves scripts that are already built in by default, which are pretty nice. Let's say that I wanted just a clock. I just wanted a regular old clock in there telling people what time it is. So I can hit update text here, and now all of a sudden, this text box has now become a nice little timer that I can show off if I so choose. So now it's 6:25 local time as we're streaming this, and we can make adjustments to that as we so desire. Other templates that they have, I actually use this a lot. I do a marble stream where I count down how many marble runs I've done so far. And I use just a text file that I have written in advance to change the numbers easily there. So I don't have to change things in Xsplit every time. And so I'll just feed in a file there, and then it'll just read in whatever text is on that file, and I can change that out as I so choose. It can also read from RSS. It can read from a remote URL. If some of you fancy folk out there doing web dev want to pull, I don't know, like a donation total from a website or something like that, or is just pulling standard information from somewhere, that's a pretty easy thing to do as well. So different opportunities there that you can do. You can also write your own scripts. This is infinitely adaptable depending on what you want. And they'll even show you the scripts that they have built in. It's all written in JavaScript, so it's nothing too fancy here, but you can see how easy it is to just write your own stuff if you have the capabilities. So we have ourselves a pretty good setup here right now. We have ourselves, of course, our we have my webcam ready to go. We have the clock, and we also have the game running in the background there. Let's say, for example, that I wanted to have the clock on all my scenes, but I don't want to necessarily have to make it over and over again. All I could do here is simply click on the source that I want. I can hit copy, and then I can move to another scene. Let's say scene 2, and I can just paste it into that space as well. And all of a sudden, I can either choose, by the way, paste as a new source, which means it loads independently of the previous scene, or I can paste it as a linked source, which means it's using memory whenever you're swapping between scenes, but it won't have any pop-in when you swap between scenes like some of your sources might have. I'm going to pop that in right there, paste it as new source, and it loads into the same spot and the same size, same settings as it was before. Same thing with my green screen camera. Let's say I don't want to have to mess around with the green screen stuff again. I just click on my webcam here. As it's currently set up, I hit copy, and then I go back to my other scene, and then I can just actually Control V, just like good old Control C, Control V, and now I have myself in the bottom right hand corner there without too much issue. So that's this basic setup for getting your scenes set up in Xsplit in a broadcaster. You could see it's a little bit less kind of visually appealing than necessarily the Gamecaster, but you have a lot of options easily available to you at all times as you're working through these individual pieces. And of course, add names to your scene if you so desire. So I'll call this one StreamerSquare because I feel like being cute today. StreamerSquare test. And so whenever I look over here now and I click away and I click, excuse me, let me try it again. StreamerSquare test. And I hit enter. You can see that it's listed right there. I don't necessarily suggest picking such a large name, but at the very least, you can see that the text adds into that little button there, and you can easily swap between scenes as you so choose. Other options that are on the main screen for the broadcaster, you can see I have myself transitions that we can change. Depending on where we are transitioning to, you can actually choose what transition you might want. So let's say if you're swapping from your intro to your game screen, you want to have one type of transition, but from game to outro, you want to have like a cool stinger that you have for yourself. Those are options that are available to you, which makes life pretty easy. We also, of course, have our main microphone source, which is my current setup right here. If I want to mute myself during my stream, I just hit that and it goes away. Unmute it again to get it set. You can also see it's actively tracking how much audio I'm generating from my microphone right there. If I wanted to turn down my microphone for any reason, I can just click and it automatically lowers that level. This, meanwhile, is the volume range of my computer. I could change it up or down depending on how much I want to hear and go from there. And of course, mute any computer sounds that I might have or unmute them. Here's an audio mixer that is built in Xsplit as well. You can add more sources as you go along here and just see how your levels are doing or tweak as necessary. You can see that my VT3 setup that I currently have built in is reaching into those yellows, which is exactly where I want to be. I don't want to be any higher than that. An honest audio engineer might say a little bit more in the green, please, Shadow, but I like to yell. Anyway, and then the default speakers, I currently don't have any sound currently on my system, so that would make sense that it's quiet, but that is an option that we have available to us, and we'll talk more about the device settings and things like that in just a moment. Other things here, of course, you can change your transition types here. You can set a particular transition as a favorite, so it's listed towards the top if you want to make a quick swap. Here's something that's pretty nice. If you say, okay, I like being able to see the scene that I have in front of me, but I would really love it if I could also have a nice preview thing because I'm a video producer, like a director of things, and I want to have full control over the workspace. So I can click on workspace up here, and I can swap from classic mode to split mode, and now I can see that I have both. In this case, right now I have still both the same scene here, but I could select scene 1 here and have that set as my preview. The preview scene there is not what's currently live on the channel. It's just something you could look at so you can make sure everything's ready to go on it. Maybe you need to make a last minute edit to a bit of text or something like that. And then once you're ready to push it, you just hit the push live button in the bottom right hand corner and a nice easy transition into the scene that you have set as the preview. That's something if you really get into it and you really want to make sure that you have easy access to all of your scenes and stuff. That's a really nice thing to do. I typically go for classic because I am a noob, and that's fine. Other adjustments that you can do in this top right-hand corner, you can see already it's set to 1920 by 1080 at 30 FPS, which is how I run my streams typically. I play a lot of very silly indie games, and running at 60 FPS would just be silly on its own. I can change the resolution here very easily enough. All I got to do is I just got to click on this, and I get myself various options, which are just running off the screen here. But of course, as you might expect, you can pick various things. You can also create your own resolution if you so choose. Various different options there. Frame rate also 30, 60, and others, depending on where you're at. You can also make sure that this XSplit window is scaled properly. So right now you can see it's gotten smaller and it has adjusted accordingly, but I'm going to keep that maxed out. Last few things we're going to cover here before we are going to end for the evening here. Of course, we can add ourselves. I could, for example, load in a presentation from my own stream. I do not want to save my current presentation because it's kind of gross, so I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm instead going to load in the presentation I have for my present streams, for example, which I have named very helpfully the date that I made it and nothing else. So useful. And as it makes a transition over to that, you can see everything is currently getting cut in. My webcam is currently being used by the capture software for the stream today, which is why you can't see it in the corner there. But I have access to all of my various scenes here, including the intro scene that I have here, which just runs a video that I had made beforehand. And that pops in very nicely, so I can have myself a nice little animated starting. I can also have a nice little outro, complete with music. I'm not going to click on for music reasons, and also things like a break, BRB screen. Or if I just really want a really big scene known as Scene 5, I can use that as well for reasons that I won't explain. All right. Any questions about how to add your scenes, add sources into your scenes, or anything like that? It's a pretty intuitive setup once you kind of get used to the workflow of it. It takes a little bit getting used to that, but it's OBS, and I guess it was previously called OBS Studio. Now it's just called OBS. It has a pretty similar workflow to it. XSplit I just find to be a little bit shinier and a little bit easier to kind of parse. So otherwise, in the file area, you can, of course, add new scenes, things like that. We can access the recordings and screenshots very easily. We can add new presentations or create or save or load new ones. Broadcast, you can see here. You can add various channels and broadcasts that you can do as you go along. You can see I have plenty different options here that I've used over the years. And when I go and hit broadcast once again, I'm going to focus on my dear shadow test, which is what I was using on my other one. I can click on it and immediately go live, or I can hit the cog in order to see what's going on with it. So here is how you would set up yourself a broadcast, right? The first thing is they'll ask you to authenticate with your account. You can, of course, just do that via Twitch, or you can add in a stream key if you're a little bit more old school. That works just fine as well. Then you should also, of course, pick your server. I don't know why I decided to pick New York. This is a brand new computer, so that might be why. I tried to stick to Chicago, which you can see as you scroll down. They ping all of the various servers that Twitch has and will let you know the ping, the average, and any jitter that might be occurring on that server. 5 milliseconds ping is pretty darn good for Chicago too, so I'm going to go for that one. I can also then make sure that it confirms what server I'm working with before I move on. The codec, I want to be using my shiny new graphics card, so I want to use the NVENC. The bit rate here, I could choose how big of a maximum bit rate, more or less, that I want to use for this. I'll use 6,000 because I'm a Scrub Lord partner. And we can make these adjustments as we go. And of course, adjust your bit rate for your audio, whether or not that audio comes in via stereo or mono. You don't really want to mess with the network connection because that'll just do it on its own. And then whether or not you also want to automatically save the recording as you go along. Once you have that all set okay, you can also, of course, use the setup wizard if this seems too complicated. You can also do test bandwidth, which actually checks to make sure that you can connect to that server at the bit rate you have chosen. It's a good kind of double check to just make sure everything's working the way it's supposed to. And then once you're set, you can hit OK. And then if you go back to broadcast, you can actually start streaming there. Recording, kind of pretty similar here. You just have to make sure that your adjustments are made the way you want them to, and we'll just capture whatever the active scene is and place it wherever you want as well. Other things we have here, the playout here allows you to send this for a projector. Let's say you're using XSplit just as a broadcaster to screens around your like workplace of business or something like that. All you have to do is come here and you can choose projection screens to put whatever's on XSplit out towards. Extensions, they add different extensions and plugins over time to make this a little bit easier for yourself. For example, the audio mixer. We've seen before already. You can see that depending on what sort of levels we want, we can make adjustments there very quickly. Other extensions that we have here, give me 1 second, include a per scene audio. So let's say I want my desktop audio to be on my main thing, but I don't want it set onto my intro slide, in which case then you can set your per scene audio for that. Typically, I just like running audio for everything because I'm lazy, but it is an option that you have available to you if you really want to be very specific about what does and does not show up on each scene. The presentation packager. You can actually take everything that's contained on your scenes and your presentations and throw it into one little file that you can then share amongst other XSplits. So if you say use multiple computers and you build up a scene on your main computer and then you want to just carry that over along with all the files, images, text, and things that you want, you can actually zip all that up and put it into a little convenient package that you can then send off to wherever it needs to go. Pretty nice setup, especially if you don't want to have to worry about, what was the file path for this, and all that madness. We also have a scene switcher if you want to set a hotkey to swap in scenes. Pretty nice there. Stinger creator. Let's say you want to make your own transition that isn't built into XSplit on its own, in which case you can actually use that to help create or convert the file into what it needs to make that stinger work and make sure that it's timing correctly for everything there. They also have themselves more extensions through their library of various things that you can add in here. Of course, things like the Stream Deck are pretty easy to add in. A lot of the things they already listed are already here too. And if you are a deserter and decide that XSplit is the right place for you, you can even import your scenes from OBS to use an XSplit instead, just if you decide you want to make a real quick change. Last few things here, there's not a whole lot else to talk about, are the tools up on the top here. We can, of course, change up how our audio sounds. Let's say you have a microphone and you're okay with it, but you want to add a few extra bits and pieces to it. For example, you want to suppress noise. Maybe you got a very loud fan, or you have, guests in your house or something like that, or family is talking a little loud. Noise suppression is going to help you just kind of eliminate any of that outward noise, right? The noise gate, meanwhile, will only ensure that your microphone is activated when it's hearing your sound and not really much else, which is pretty nice. You can also set the threshold, of course, for your noise gate. You can also set some EQ for your sound. Just kind of finagling with this allows you to set whatever sort of preset you might want to help catch the lows, the mids, the highs of your beautiful melodious voice or whatever sort of sound you're trying to send in. You can also compress the voice if you're like me and you like to shout a lot. I have none of these set up on my own personal setup, and that is specifically for the reason that I do it all via hardware, but this is a very excellent way to do this without having to spend $200 on a DBX. Jesus, why did I do that? Anyway, it's a pretty handy little setup right there. It was introduced more, I think, relatively recently, but it is a pretty handy thing for sure. Other tools, again, there's XSplit actually also has their own video editor built in these days, where you can easily make quick edits to the videos that you've recorded in XSplit and make whatever sort of changes you need to make before you may throw it on, say, your YouTube or something like that. Last thing to look at before we finish up for today is the settings, of course. Things like making sure that the GPU takes or sends XSplit its priority, or it sets XSplit as a priority to make sure that it is chugging through that your broadcast before it's focusing on anything else. You want to make sure, of course, if you want to have game sources, you want to easily capture those. You want to select that. Just like with Gamecaster, you can hide XSplit from any display capture if you're trying to show everything off without having XSplit ugly, being ugly in that space. Other things, there's like a little control bar that you can have if you want, but I got rid of that. It just shows a little setup that sees like whether or not it just has pretty much a stream and a record button, which isn't too exciting, but it is a nice thing. Normally when you're streaming, it'll show the viewer count on the top of the screen, which sometimes people do not want. And also you can get just a little quality of life thing. The link to your stream can be automatically copied to your clipboard when you start a broadcast, which is pretty sweet. pretty much everything's set there. Audio, very easy stuff. You just set your microphone and whatever sort of sound you want out of your computer. You can, of course, set what your mix is for your audio too. Hotkeys, pretty self-explanatory. You can set your hotkeys to whatever sort of thing you want, including setting to particular scenes and things. Sharing, you can immediately get things connected to upload videos to YouTube from Xsplit directly, which is pretty nice. You can also have Xsplit post on Twitter. I don't recommend having boilerplate tweets for your Twitter for various engagement reasons, but it is an option to there if you are a bad Twitterer and would not otherwise tweet out your stream otherwise. And then there are a few extra options in here that you can kind of mess with if you're really feeling like getting into the guts of the matter, where you can set the video processing mode and things like that to really get a little messy if you so choose. When Cutting Dolphin says fixed its update, for some reason, Xsplit version 4, which came out a couple of weeks ago, had a little bit of a lag issue in terms of getting things connected. It has since seems to have resolved itself. I haven't had any issues since that point, but it's a pretty easy setup. Last thing I'm going to do here real quick is go live by broadcasting here. I'm going to go to Shadow Test, and I'm just going to go ahead and go live on this particular setup. And the reason why I want to do that is I want to show you what you get on the top of the screen here, which case it tells you, of course, where you're live, what channel you're currently live to, how long you've been live, your viewership, which you can hide if you so choose, the bit rate that it's currently holding on to, how many frames you've dropped so far, and how many bytes you have sent into the system. That's always a scary number to see over the course of several hours, but it's also kind of fun. And so there you go. A quick and easy, painless way to get yourself streaming on Twitch via both XSplit Gamecaster and XSplit Broadcaster. Two very beautiful bits of programming. Again, the Gamecaster is free. The Broadcaster is not, but I do personally use the Broadcaster, and I love it very much. I will be using it on my own personal stream later tonight. If there are no questions, and I'll give everybody just a second on this. Once again, thank you guys so much all for hanging out with us this evening. This is the last StreamerSquare workshop for the year, as was mentioned at the very top of the stream here today. We are just taking kind of a general StreamerSquare break. Not on our own side, by the way, of course. We are planning plenty of new content, new shows, new ideas that'll be coming out on or towards the start of the new year. Thank you all so much, though, for hanging out with us for this. It's been a wonderful time. I think this is my fifth workshop that I've done with StreamerSquare so far, and I'm excited to come back in 2021 to continue these as we go. Be sure to check out, of course, the Twitter for StreamerSquare, twitter.com/StreamerSquare, as well as the YouTube channel for this and other workshops that have been listed out there. Topics like how to become an affiliate, what happens when you become a partner on Twitch, YouTube basics and deep dives and things of that nature. I've done things like a voice coaching workshop where I brought in a voice coach that should be on the YouTube channel eventually as well. All that sort of information you can get easily there. Thank you once again all for listening. This was just kind of a point to say that there are other opportunities besides OBS out there if you so desire. Doesn't stop you from using OBS, certainly. But if you ever want to join the XSplit side, hopefully this has shown you exactly what you can do and how easy it is to do it. And hopefully you can go from there. This has been Shadow Temple. Thank you very much once again. Thank you to Morag for running the booth in the background. I will hope to see you guys in the new year. Otherwise, have yourselves a good Wednesday. Stay safe. Stay at home if you can. And we'll see you guys later.